welcome veteran DynamicsCon superhero John Kirsch. Today he will be presenting his session on 2024 GP trending topics. Please stick around after John's session for a live Q&A.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. Thanks for joining DynamicsCon virtual. Hope everybody's having a great day so far. Let's jump right into this. I've got a lot of content. Usually don't have a problem filling up time, so let's get going here. The whole premise of this session is really just reviewing what common topics are going on around the GP world right now. So I'm going to kind of talk about some support items, some project items, some of kind of the account management side of things, if you will, with GP's lifecycle support announcement and everything like that. So this is how I fill a lot of my days right now, and that's kind of the premise. The reason and where I've gotten good feedback of doing similar a couple of years ago when I last did this one was others like to kind of compare. Am I thinking of the same things, or somebody else is doing something and that's a great idea? I want to be able to implement the same thing as well. So kind of that chance to compare a little bit, see what other people are doing in terms of what we see coming through our support group and our project team and things like that. So again, let's jump into it. A little bit about myself here. My name is John Kirsch. I'm the GP product lead at SA Global. I've been working with GP for 25 plus years, so going back into the 90s. I've worked at a number of companies that have used GP, so I've been an end user. I've worked in IT role as well as accounting roles, so I've used it kind of across the board, if you will. And I've also then been doing consulting now for over 10 years. So I've got a lot of different, kind of points of view of using the software and experience. All my contact information is here. If you have questions, again, please put those in the chat. I might ask you to repost any questions at the end, though. Unfortunately, I didn't line up a moderator. So in case I miss anything when we get to that time, I may ask if you can just kind of put it in there, maybe type it up and paste it at that time. But if there are other questions, that was a good chance to email or check out some of the blogging and things like that. One other thing I always like to do, the point on the bottom here about being president at Golden House, I like to talk about kind of nonprofits for a minute or two. So I'm the president at Golden House in Green Bay, Wisconsin, where I'm from. It's a domestic violence shelter and advocacy program. And so what Golden House does is really anything around domestic abuse, supporting survivors, helping people get through it, legal support, housing, everything really around it. And I got involved in that as it affected a close family member of mine. But for me, it's a good way to spread word about that because it's a need in almost every community, or really every community. But also just a chance to kind of talk about giving back. And I hope everybody can find a topic or something that really means something to them and be able to give back, whether that's, something fun and dealing with puppies and cats and things like that, or, something a little more serious like this with Golden House and domestic violence. No matter what that is, there is that good feeling that you get, and kind of nothing quite replaces that. So I encourage everybody to consider getting involved that way. Otherwise, you see the big family picture on the side there. Whatever other time I have, not doing all of this stuff and helping out is kind of whatever my kids are involved in. So keep me busy and a lot of fun here. So let's jump in. So again, we're gonna kind of talk about what's going on and things that are kind of hot topics right now. So the first slide I have here is kind of a support topic, and talking about just some of the kind of hardware type issues, I would say, that are going on right now. I have on the top there, you see RDS and Windows 11, kind of the two areas where I see this the most, but not necessarily exclusively. And a couple of these things are, we've seen, especially early on with Windows, it's kind of Windows 11, it's kind of died down a little bit, I would say, but the print driver issues, like printing a batch and not locking it up, not finished posting, things like that. Again, that's gotten a little bit better, but there's always kind of that seemingly issue with new, hardware and software releases going on. the resolution scaling issues, I think a lot of people have seen that. There are fixes out there that are, kind of help with it. There's some, registry editors and manifest files if you do it manually. Tools like GP Power Tools that'll help kind of install those things automatically for you. But I literally was working on this yesterday with one of our clients. So trying to just make a screen a little bit bigger or scale better and not be blurry and things like that. So, that is an ongoing issue, I would say, kind of with GP. It also with RDS is a little kind of extra tricky. So you kind of got to work through that. And then the RDS side, as more and more people are using, whether it hosted on-prem or hosted in the cloud, in terms of using an RDS server, remote desktop server, to run GP, disconnected sessions. So for those more technical, if you're using the published app, or non-technical, if you just open GP, even though it's running on the RDS, it just opens the application, looks like it's local. Those are published apps, and those don't usually rejoin if you get disconnected. Like I'm running remotely, my VPN drops, and now I got to reconnect, but it says I'm already logged into GP. It's going to kick me out, and whatever had it open is kind of locked. So those disconnected sessions are a problem. One of my recommendations with that, if at all possible, is share the whole desktop on RDS rather than the published app. It's just, it will reconnect then and allow you to pick up GP right where it is, whereas those disconnected sessions just don't typically work as well. The other option is a web client, which will also be able to allow you to join an existing session rather than a disconnected one. So a couple of things to think about there. And I have that last point, again, I kind of mentioned here talking about using GP remotely, like with a VPN. And typically then we want or should have an RDS server or connecting to a PC that's in the office to run GP. Inevitably, I talk to folks that are using GP on my laptop, even though I'm out of the office with the VPN connected. It's slow. The reality of it, it's not supported in that method just because we know GP requires that constant connection, and inevitably something interrupts that internet briefly, and we drop and get locked out and kind of have to reconnect and deal with all of that. So if you use GP, especially routinely out of the office, really need to look into a solution with connecting back to a workstation or a remote desktop server to be able to use it that way. So I continue to kind of see that pretty commonly. Okay, switching topics here, keep it moving along, is kind of talking about, again, this kind of falls in our terminology or, grouping of account management here, but very important discussions going on right now. As probably most everybody knows, Microsoft did announce the GP end of support date, 2029 being the releases and through 31 for the kind of security fixes. I've really honed in on that September 2029 date. Really, there's not a lot of security fixes that get released with GP in the past. And, that's when the main kind of the updates and things are announced as being ending. So, very important to understand and know what those dates are. And with that, then, starting to make a plan what that is for everybody. There's been planning, kind of in the short term here and discussions of everywhere from, staying on GP forever to let's look at moving right now, right? So most people are somewhere in between, hopefully. And that's the important thing to understand is, no matter what that is, you have 5 years, almost 5 years yet from the date now to plan and understand the details and, make sure you've got a good solid plan in place of what your next steps are. And, from my standpoint and the discussions we're having with our clients right now as a consultant, is to make plans over those 5 years. Our perspective and where we look at GP is GP has been great. We'll continue to support GP as long as people are using GP. So, that 2029 date does not mean GP is going to stop working, and certainly can continue to help folks continue to use it after that date. But at the same time, every day we use a software that's not supported, we do have some risk building at that point and going forward. So really look to be on a supported system. And so September 2029 is kind of that end date again that was announced. So for us, it's kind of looking at that window of time here over these 5 years and making a plan of what the steps should be that best protect your business and keep moving forward with the technology that you need. There are links, again, when you get the slides here, you'll have the links here for the modern life cycle, which is the chart on the right-hand side. So kind of laying out those dates. The other important date on that bottom point there is that, no new sales of GP of perpetual starting in the spring of next year, and then subscription in 2026. So I don't have the exact dates on there, but just be aware that if you are an existing GP client, which probably most watching this are, these do not have any effect on that. So you can, even after these dates on into the future, you can buy more users. You can, add modules if you need to from Microsoft for GP, as long as you're current on your enhancement. So we do want to make sure you are, staying current on there to be able to do that and grow with the usage coming up here. Okay, a little bit more around this. Again, most have been using GP for a while, so probably somewhat familiar information, but the current version is 18.7 that was released in October. Kind of the normal calendar here for reference, the June update, kind of the payroll, Canadian payroll update that comes out each year. Our October release is that feature release that just came out to 18.7. And then around December, usually it's around Thanksgiving, so really it's usually around November now, but that year-end update will come out, and that's in the works here right now, and some of that year-end planning and changes that come every year for the U.S. side of things. So that cadence, again, will continue through September 2029, and we can expect those releases to come out. We really recommend to stay current, and really where it's kind of fallen out as far as updates for testing is that it's been a year and a half or so to be able to update directly, or close to 2 years. So right now you can see this note here of supported upgrades to this 18.7 release that just came out, is you need to be on 18.5.1556 or later. So you can look at like your GP login screen or going into the help to check your exact version. But we don't want to update. If you're on an earlier version, you're going to update with the proper steps to get to at least like 18.5 and then get to 18.7, so that any of the updates in between all are applied properly, so they're not compatible. Say if you're on like 2018 R2 or something like that right now, that's not going to update directly to 18.7. So be sure you look at that. This is literally copied right off the Microsoft product release form there for the supported information. So be sure to take a look at your version and plan any updates out, or talk to your partner. They'll be able to help plan that out quickly as well. But make sure you've got a supported path with that. The last bullet point there, it just really, really encourage everybody to stay up to date. Again, we always want to be realistic, right? We've got, day-to-day functions to do, and not just updating GP. But I would at least typically recommend it to do this annually. Find a kind of a slower time in the business where it's okay to have people out for part of a day or an afternoon or an evening or whatever, and do the update. You'll get all those new features. You'll get the bug fixes and things like that in there, and it'll keep you in that kind of one-hop update going forward. These are typically straightforward updates. We're not seeing a lot of table updates and things like that, so not a lot of issues. Backing up the database for most, backing up the, kind of the install folder, if you will, so that if you do need to revert back off that first install, but running the update and then rolling it out. So usually it's pretty straightforward for most to apply the update. All right, let's switch topics again here. Next one here, talking about audit-related requests and controls. And this has been, I looked at this and kind of looked back at my presentation for one of the DynamicsCon virtual. I think it was 2.5 years ago, at least, when I did this one, somewhere around there. But I did this, and this really hasn't changed very much. And I can, talk about most of these items here, but I continue to see and work on projects around this. Literally just finished a workflow GL implementation where we had a very large tree and a lot of activity going on in that, email alerts, other alerts that we custom created in there. So a pretty complex workflow for GL batches, but it also helped move from, for audit purposes, for reporting, to be able to run those reports right out of GP, which we did customize or create some custom reporting options around that too. But be able to run that for audit purposes and control purposes right out of GP, and not going, kind of getting rid of the paper filing and sign off and things like that. So, these are again, very active things that are going on right now. Another discussion going on, talking a little bit about vendor approvals. I think there's actually a workflow session, I believe, right after this. So you'll probably, be able to relate some of this to some of those examples in there. But GL and vendors are kind of the main two current ones, the vendors. And I think I heard David Lester talking about this a little bit earlier today too. The vendors can be a kind of quick and easy one that adds some additional control. So especially small organizations that, maybe somebody can create a vendor and also cut checks. And ideally not the best, security that we want for controls. We probably have some other, physically signing controls or things like that in place. But this is another layer of security then, where somebody can't just change it and then go right away and cut a check in there. So these workflows can really enhance the security where we just have, especially kind of limited staff and have to deal with those type of things. All right. So again, kind of related to auditing and controls and things like that. I've over the last several years been asked and implemented different solutions around change tracking and auditing. So some of that could be around user security changes. We can use some of the built-in GP functionalities to see when people log in and things like that. So we can use some of that. Sometimes we need a little bit more robust solution though. So, we want to be tracking every time a master record changes, or certain things within that master record change. Who, when, easy reporting, all those sorts of things. So again, sometimes, from my standpoint, we typically start with, does the GP functionality work? If not, then we typically kind of go ISV solution and then a custom solution if we don't have any of those. So I've kind of got that listed there, maybe not quite in that order, GP activity tracking being the first there, if we can turn that on and use that. Next option there, SQL, and what I mean by that is we can write some SQL triggers just to, especially if it's just one or two tables, just to kind of write that information or the changes off to another table, and we can create some smart lists or reports off of that to use that. So usually do that when it's just kind of one or two targeted areas that we need something specific. Otherwise, I've got a few options listed out there, all that have solutions that work with kind of that change tracking, auditing. Each one are kind of have their specialty, or are excel in a certain area. So we've used all of those different options here to be able to work with the right solution. So certainly something then to drill down into and find a solution that works for you if you need it. The last thing down there on the bottom there, just kind of this is always a topic, I guess, security review, details, reports. It's just something that, I think everybody probably should take a little bit of time at some point. Put it on your internal checklist to-dos. Don't do it around year end. You're busy enough then, but find a time during the year to say, okay, we should do a little security review, or maybe it's done as part of an audit, and just kind of take a look who's in there that should be inactivated, who should have less rights, who needs more rights. Does somebody have power user and they shouldn't? Those type of things. Occasionally should get reviewed. Things happen. Somebody was given extra rights because they needed to get something done or cover for somebody's vacation, and it got left behind that way. There's a ton of things like that pop up and we forget about, and just a good reminder to do that, and make sure we're double checking on that important piece of the software. All right, rolling along here, GP in the cloud. I want to talk for just kind of starting out, just talking about hosting GP first. So, again, most people probably have been familiar with this, introduced to it, but I still see the majority of people, using GP on-prem, which is perfectly good, right? We have a server, we install GP on the workstations, or again, we have the RDS or web client installed on-prem, and you can go ahead and use that. But if we want to, we can certainly use GP in the cloud. And, I've got kind of the options listed out there. You can private cloud, that could be with an IT vendor or, some lease space, not Azure. I listed Azure specifically there, but really anywhere we can have a SQL server running in the cloud with a remote desktop server and web client server. We can run GP and connect to it and use it. And then there's certainly, hosting providers that are GP specific as well. And, we can partner with them. They do help to be able to be familiar with GP and kind of tuning the servers, and be able to make sure things are patched and secured and things like that. So all good options if you want to use GP in the cloud and kind of get rid of that on-prem hardware and responsibility around that. So that's kind of just the outline of it. When I talk about using GP in the cloud, though, we can certainly, again, on-prem, where I see a majority of people using GP yet, we can still connect with VPNs and get back to it and use GP from anywhere, right? So that works well. And then I get to thinking about GP in the cloud as not just GP, right? Not just the core application. And this is where I spend a lot of time, and I love the tools and all the options that are out there. And so I'm going to kind of talk about this as using GP as kind of extensions in the cloud here. Oops. So the first one I want to talk about is actually a third-party product here, so pointing that out. But SmartList Builder, I'm going to talk about first for a second here. A lot of GP implementations has used the E1 Solutions add-on for SmartList called SmartList Builder. And that allowed us to, create custom smart lists, modify the existing ones, kind of join tables, use custom views, all those sorts of things right within GP. And a while ago, several years ago, I'm not sure how long at this point, but E1 introduced PopDoc, which is kind of the smart list in the cloud. And so PopDoc became available. It connects back to the GP data as well as a lot of other data sources as well. So a lot of options there for that. Now, why do I talk about those two and kind of have it laid out that way? It's that SmartList Builder, if you've had the licensing, we're kind of in a transition year right now that as of July here, everybody then is kind of getting migrated to a PopDoc plan. And that's not the official terms, but I guess that's my wording of it, right? So you're going to have use rights. Essentially, your renewal is going to be kind of on PopDoc, and you still continue to be able to use SmartList Builder. But just opening the doors, that is essentially, if you have SmartList Builder, you have PopDoc coming up here or already. So with your renewal, you'll get more information about that if you're kind of more in the kind of second half of the calendar year from Microsoft's year for the most part ending in June here. But your renewals are coming up. You'll get information about that. So we'll leave it at that. But I do want to share a little bit. And again, this is a third party. So, just want to make sure everybody's aware. But just to give a quick look at that, because this is such a popular tool. And again, as I talk about using GP in the cloud, you can see here, I've got my, my kind of test environment here up and running. For those that have been using PopDoc as well, just a quick point out that if you didn't realize, or maybe you just got an email recently that your environment might have been updated. So there are some changes in the interface here that just came out, including some of the home screen changes here. So you can see in my home screen, I'm just going to show a couple of things real quick here, is that, I've got a kind of, a pie chart here right on my home screen showing some of the item sales information, basically, from my GP info. But just to kind of give everybody a quick overview here, I'm really just pulling data that's right back with GP information here. So I've got my account list. If anybody's in Fabricam, they probably see some of this information, looks pretty familiar. I've got a few tabs that were already open that I'm just kind of wanted to show here. A few things really nice, kind of enhancements from SmartList is really easy ability to do grouping here. So you can see my item number up on the top. If I close that, it now just becomes a normal SmartList. But if I drag this back up here again, now I'm grouping by item number here. So I can see where I'm getting subtotals, I'm getting lines here. And these are, again, our sales line items here. So kind of sales by items. So I've got this set up very easy to kind of do totaling and subtotaling here, just to give you a little bit of view of what that looks like. As well, here's that same pie chart that I had on my home screen, just giving you a view of that on the tab. One other chart option here, this should be sales by customer. So just a simple bar chart, bar graph here of that information by customer here. So allowing us to be able to surface this up, and again, where I kind of referenced this before is using GP in the cloud. Right. So this is connecting ultimately behind the scenes. There's a little bit of setup to set up the gateway to connect to the GP data. But once that's set up, I can use this anywhere. I can open a web browser. So I could use this on my phone. I could use this, traveling, wherever that might be. So I really like, to think about this when we're talking about using GP in the cloud, that it does not have to be kind of solely around the core application, right? There's a lot of tools we have available. One more quick peek at this here in a different light. So I'm actually in my Teams channel here, and I do have PopTalk, you'll see up here on the top, loaded as well. So, another option where maybe we're in the office in this example, but I actually just want to pull some information. I don't want to log into GP, or security wise, I don't want to set that up. I've got one where I can just see item prices, and I can see different views of the sales line items here. So I've got security set up. This widget only gives me a little bit of information. I've added it to like a sales channel in that example would be fitting. And those that have access to it in Teams here, because I've set up that widget that way, would be able to get in here. And let's just find this right one here. I don't know if this is the one by the name. It wasn't. I was going to find, let's try one more time. Well, this is the customer chart, I think. So you can see that same chart available in this view as well. So Teams being able to surface up what we have available here. So hope that gives you a picture. One of the tools here to be able to use that PopTalk tool, again, in the cloud. So let's keep exploring in that route. And I love to talk about Power Apps. If I guess you've seen me present, it's pretty common that I'm presenting on Power Apps in one form or another. I really, really like, as I call out here, that utility Power Apps. So those small applications, might be a niche fit, might be, I need one of the examples I don't have listed here, like barcode scanning. I need it for just one simple use, but I don't need a full solution for it. Building something for that. Again, people don't want to go into GP to do something, or you don't want to give a license and set that up, but we can build a Power App to pull data or send data. So I've got a few things to show you around that, but I really like that, and Power Apps fits so well to be able to build those, do that efficiently, and be able to kind of fill those needs and make our usage easy. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples here. The first one is kind of a very simple, this is intentionally simplified. You might have a little more complex one if you were actually using this, but this is a sales order entry window. So I'm just going to go ahead and type something here. And I don't need an actual address, but we'll just type some things in here. And I should have some background music or something playing while I'm typing. No, I didn't plan for that. So I do have an item here set up for tickets, and I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. It's $12.59. We'll use that as the quantity, just to show that I'm typing this in here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. You'll see the bars kind of running across. This application, just to kind of give you a background of how this one works, and they can work a little bit differently. But what this application is doing is connecting to the SQL database that GP is running on. So I set this one up to have a little staging table inside of SQL, and it writes back these records, and it will then store basically what I entered, the customer information and then the order information over on the right-hand side, store those in two tables. And when those tables are all set or has records in them, In this example, and very similar to what I have set up in production for somebody, is I have a Smart Connect map that's kind of helping do some of the data validation. So again, Smart Connect is another E1 product that I use a lot for integrations. But what this does is demonstrate for me a couple of things that I like to share. Is one, again, using in the cloud, I can do this anywhere. I happen to be on the same system demoing this that GP is on, but I can use this on my phone. I could use this anywhere I have an internet connection to do this entry. And then the Smart Connect side of it can be scheduled and just running. So very low code to develop something like this, because I'm using Power Apps, which even has some Copilot tools to be able to do that. And then I have, again, Smart Connect with a user interface to be able to do that mapping and do that with kind of a lower code setup as well. There's a little bit in between on the SQL side, so I can't say that you can necessarily avoid everything with that, but certainly pretty efficiently doing that. So let's just check here just to demonstrate. I like to show that things are working as we saw. So here's the last invoice, 1259 was the time and the quantity there. So you can see it went ahead and imported my invoice very simply from there. I could, again, customize that screen a little bit more, but I'm able to really have a custom sales entry screen and have that flow right into GP. So I think, kind of a really slick tool for those looking to have, an easy interface or a custom one and be able to do that. So that's one of the examples. Again, kind of called that out on the slides there. I also mentioned in the slides, though, in Teams, so you'll see that in there. I'm just going to pop my Teams channel over here as well. I do have actually an app over on the side here loaded. This is that same application right here. I'm in Teams. You can see the shell of it. So before I was in the web browser and just launched the published link to it, but this is using this in Teams. So again, I could be essentially getting data into GP if I'm taking calls on the phone, right? If I can keep things straight here, but I've got an incoming call. I want to place an order quick. I'm in Teams. I flip over to here, type in my information, and submit it, and I could have it into GP just like that without really going into GP at all. So really like to point that out, since so much of us spend a large amount of time of our day inside of Teams. Okay, I'm going to kind of jump ahead here, and this other piece I have here, I like to share this, looking up information, customer portal. One very easy option that I built here as well, and let me get that screen up for you, the magic of trying to work with multiple screens here. There we go. This is a very simple one that I created here. This is, again, attaching to my GP sample data. This dropdown is just a list of all the customers. And I'm just going to pick one here and say open. And what I have here with this is, on the left-hand side, I have my aging. So my AR aging report or AR aging essentially. And then I have the open documents in the list over here. So set up a couple of views. So that, again, a little bit of technical work here to kind of create these views, and then just filter them down by customer here. So just to show, I'll just scroll down and pick a random one. Hopefully they have some data here. It does take a second or two to refresh after I've had that open, and it's still thinking. So there we go. Now it refreshed here. We can see I got a lot of old data in the system here, but we now see 40,000 here. I'm sure if we add this up over here, this would total. And now I have this. And again, going back to that theme of using GP in the cloud, I like this simple, like sometimes we want a dashboard or we want something simple, right? The example I would have is I'm going into a customer's office and I just want to see what's open if I need to talk to them about it, right? So just to show, I actually have a screenshot of it in the slides here too, but I have this, on my phone as well. So then I can go ahead and open this, and, it fits. I don't think that shows up very well, but you'll see it on the next slide here. It fits very well into that window, and being able to, let's see so you can see it here. I could zoom in on their amounts here, or I can, kind of zoom in on any of these sales documents as well if I wanted to. So, being able to build kind of a simple portal there to be able to look up information. So I really like that kind of simple usage. Again, it fits kind of a need that you may have. So I encourage everybody to think about that. What are those efficiency areas that I wish I could get to this information, or I wish I had an easier way to enter this. It doesn't seem like it's very complicated. There's probably a nice little utility that could be built like that to be able to fit those needs and potentially save you a whole bunch of time. So I love to look for those opportunities. A couple of other things, I mentioned Power BI as well. So Power BI, again, most people are familiar with it at this point. If not, it's our reporting tool on the Power Platform to be able to do, especially like, dashboards and graphical reports like this. So I've got a couple of just kind of quick examples of some here to think about. But again, the power of Power BI to be able to go ahead and use this in the cloud, run reports. I don't have to have a GP license. I don't have to be in GP. I can be out of the office if I'm publishing this out to the service and be able to pull this information together. So I have a couple of examples. It's really any report that you want to build to be able to do this. This is an example of like a balance sheet, kind of a graphical version of a financial statement that you might want to have. And again, this is just a screenshot. I knew I wasn't going to be able to go through all of these, but wanted to share a couple of thoughts on this. These are interactive. So if I wanted to, kind of see how filtering by current receivables affected the liabilities and equity, it would react to the whole screen and kind of filter that way. So, these can all be interactive for reporting or for filtering and reviewing the data. Here's another example of some dashboards that we have that shows you AR aging in the system here. So again, being able to see this without being in GP, being able to look at the information and kind of dive in there. So just gave you a couple of screenshots to be able to look at some of those examples of, again, using that potentially in the cloud. All right, so I'm going to shift gears again here now. So we're going to kind of move out of that cloud topic a little bit here, and we're going to jump in to the a couple of other items here yet before we wrap up. So if you do have some questions, again, please go ahead and throw those in there, or maybe you're saving those and have them ready at the end here so I don't lose track of them. So a technical review, I think this is so important, as well as over time, we do change SQL servers, or just some things have changed, or some people stop some services or stop some jobs that we're running, or different things can happen over time. And when I'm talking about a technical review, we have a planned, kind of project or service that we do with that is we really just go through and review review the server itself, the Windows server, look for any problems that are evident, drive space, things like that either are happening right now or, kind of getting close to some concern areas. So looking at the server itself, and then especially looking at some of the SQL settings, with there is a Microsoft Performance white paper that's out there, that you can review and kind of look at the details. But there are some things that are super important in there, that affect performance. And we should have maintenance plans running, particularly on the index. And we also want to be checking the database to make sure we don't have any integrity problems within that, and have some potential issues coming up. So we should have some maintenance plans on that. We also want to make sure we're checking that those are successful, or, sending out alerts if they're not, so that we're, aware that we have some of those issues. We want to make sure we have good backups going. That could be using the SQL, jobs and maintenance plans for backups, or it could be, using whatever backup solution that you have. But we do want to make sure our databases are backed up. Maybe this one's a little bit old school for me, not just snapshots in there. Snapshots are pretty good now, I would say, but I still prefer to make sure we have an agent running with SQL, especially on very active databases, that we have backups that are running using a SQL agent, so that we're capturing that data for restore points. There's some big advantages. Again, I don't want to get too technical here, but Transaction log backups allow us to kind of do point in time restores in case not only do we have something, maybe hardware happen, but we also potentially have the ability, just because a big mistake was made or something and we want to roll back to a certain time. Those transaction log backups, most of the time hourly, or kind of the targeted time frame every hour during the work days, allows us to get that point in time restore. So review your backup plan, make sure you're secure with what you need, what your recovery requirements are, and that those are running successfully as well. That's another thing that occasionally happens, and we never want to see it happen, but we thought backups were running, they were failing, now something happened and I need to restore, and I really didn't have that backup there, or somebody disabled the job or something. Just, it's an easy thing. If you're responsible about SQL, maybe this is your reminder of the day here. Just go out there and pop out there and make sure those are running and we don't have any issues there. Last thing on the bottom there is SQL jobs. There are some SQL jobs that automatically get installed with GP, and if those don't run, we can certainly see performance issues as well. So really important to make sure your SQL agent is running and that we're not seeing failed jobs in there as well. All right, just a couple of more topics here to talk about before we wrap up. Integration projects. This is the world we live in, I guess, right? We do a lot of integrations. Very common that, I'm switching to a different HR platform, or, different topics that come up for us that we want to go ahead and integrate. Also using like CE, Microsoft CRM platforms, and be able to integrate there. So I've got a few things that are recent ones listed out here as well. We use Smart Connect a lot. I mentioned it earlier from E1, so third party. Certainly can use Integration Manager with GP, or can do custom integrations as well, connecting to eConnect. So a number of different options there. There are obviously connectors that are available for certain products that the vendors have written for those as well. But very common to again, want to reduce data entry and be able to do that. So a couple of points on there. I actually had this earlier this summer. I was going through it. I think it's less of an issue, but I had a note in there on schedules maps locking up, and I've seen it decrease. So I think might not be an issue with the updates. I was kind of gathering some information about that. I probably should have struck that one off the list there, but it still kind of snuck as I was putting this together here. So. Just to be aware, the bottom point there, Smart Connect, a lot of folks are running on the Smart Connect, the 2018 version, Smart Connect 18. So, there's the 2021 version is kind of the currently patched and supported version out there. From my standpoint, if 18 is working well, it's rock solid with GP. I don't have a big need to change, but always keeping an eye on that with new releases of Windows and servers and things like that, because again, it's not getting updates right now. So if you are on that 18 version, kind of keep an eye on that. But if it's working really well, you want to make sure to plan that, especially where I have some where we're running dozens and dozens of maps, and making that change has to be well planned out if you're going to do that. So a note there on the versions. All right. Fixed assets. I still get this occasionally, kind of getting questions with fixed assets. I'm wanting to get them out of Excel spreadsheets and, kind of get them into the system. For me, it's just kind of a really straightforward project to be able to get those imported, go through the setup and do that. So if nothing else, I'm just going to kind of leave this as a reminder for everybody that you do have that, you own that module if you're using GP. And if you want to get away from, doing that, you want to have it directly integrated into the GL for those entries. It's a pretty straightforward project for most to be able to get those in there. If you are using it, the other kind of point on the bottom there is, if you've been using it for a while or just kind of want a clean up. I've done a couple of little projects with some clients just to kind of clean up some of those retired assets in there, make it a little bit cleaner for some of the reporting options and stuff like that. So just kind of a little refresh there. All right. Another common thing we see, especially with the bottom of switching banks, is probably the bigger where we get requests from. But switching to a new bank, need to get SafePay and EFT set up in the right format for those banks. But electronic banking certainly is kind of one of those mini projects that seems to pop up every little while, right? So just pretty common here. Everybody's kind of reviewing their options. Maybe again switching banks or working with some new options there. All right, last slide here on topics as we wrap up here. So go ahead again. If anybody has some questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat now if you were saving those. We'll try to answer any questions coming up here. But the last point here, for retraining, a process review, a lot of different titles for kind of that kind of project, if you will, or review. But really a good chance to review your system, review why you do things the way you do, not the we've always done this way, and kind of do that. Where this comes into play, a couple of things right now. One, it's always a good thing to do if you just kind of been doing things the same way all the time. Can we find a more efficient way? Can we save some time? Can we make our lives a little easier or a little more accurate with entry or things like that? So I was usually well worth your time to do that review. Are we using GP's tools and some of the things we just talked about today to the most effective way that we can? But there's also, if you are looking at moving, again, kind of the 5-year announcement here right now with the GP end of life, a process review of how and why you do things the way you do now can certainly lead into a project. I'm having this discussion with a number of folks going, planning steps to move into BC over the next year or so. Having a real good solid foundation of why you're doing things the way you do them and what you need to accomplish by doing them that way is a great foundation for moving into that BC project and implementation there, to be able to define those requirements and be able to make that really, really successful. So, this can kind of pay off in the short term, pay off in the long term as well. All right, so I think we made it. I do have my outro slide here as well here, so that if anybody needs contact information again or some exciting blog reading or LinkedIn posts, feel free to jot that down. They'll be in the slides as well. Otherwise, we've got a few minutes here. I want to, first I'll throw in a thank you. Thanks for for attending here. Thanks for, all the voting and selections here of being able to be part of the virtual conference. I was exciting to do. Hoping to be in Chicago coming up in the spring. So I always like to connect to folks or with folks and discuss any and all of these topics and what's going on. So I'm going to pause for just a couple more seconds. I'm not seeing any questions right now. We've got about 2 minutes left. So if anybody has any, please go ahead and pop them in real quick. Otherwise, again, we'll ask that, reach out if you think of something after, and I was happy to chat here. So not seeing anything, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of the conference.